It's my pleasure today to introduce Cynthia Freeland, who's going to give a talk on evolving analytics processes and storytelling in the NFL and NFL media. Thank you.
Can you hear me? How good is Philippe's hair? We need to thank you for that. I'm really impressed with it. So this is a really fancy title, but really I want to talk to you about two very important things. Linemen's bums, that's the word I use for backsides, and pregame shows, two things that I have probably a disproportionate amount of information and knowledge about, but share surprisingly similar attributes in terms of process and creating a system to evaluate. So just for me, I kind of come at this from sort of like a banker position as opposed to straight stats position. And I'm like, well, what's a problem worth solving here? And in my opinion, a problem worth solving, and not just my opinion, a lot of people's opinions when I surveyed people, was how do we figure out the O-line? It's a really complicated situation. There's a lot of dynamics that go into it, but we know that it matters kind of a lot. I'm sure the Vikings guy can tell you how important that was for them, and same with the Eagles. And a better evaluation of linemen could potentially lead to better results on the field, better game. All of these things are great. The other thing I was really interested in, given my profession, is what people are interested in hearing and talking about prior to game starting on Sunday mornings. I'm really fortunate enough to be on a show called Game Day Morning. It's on the NFL Network. You should subscribe to the network if you don't already. And we talk about all the upcoming games. It's on Sunday mornings. And I was as a non-TV, I didn't come from the TV world since college. I didn't study anything like that. So I just think about it as pure supply and demand. So I want to know what people are talking about. So those are two questions that I thought over the past few years that have been worth solving. So let's look at the first problem with O-linemen. So what I thought about, and this is a team that has kind of a not so great O-line. So I used some computer vision to see if I could measure how far off the ground a lineman's bum was at the beginning of the play, during the play, at the end of the play. I mapped it against the line of scrimmage. You can see my PowerPoint skills are really lacking since business school, but this is the best representation I can do. And then where was the quarterback at the time? And mapping these three things sort of simultaneously, you got a chance to see things like how far back a lineman got pushed, or leverage turning open, or where's the pocket, where's the quarterback at the time. Obviously, you know that if the quarterback starts under center, which is right on the line, it's going to be different than if the quarterback starts, where he's starting here. So depending on what happened, what were some things we could learn about the O-line to help figure out how to best optimize for passing situations. So I looked at almost 200,000 passing snaps. It was really fun. I have a great social life. I spend a lot of time tagging metadata when it comes to computer vision. It's rad. I'm really fun, just so you know. And then I looked to create historical context. So I did this over not just one season, not just one team, but I did every team over the past 10 years. That's really kind of sounds dorky when you put it that way. So what did I find? I would love to show you everything, but I want someone to buy that from me. So ultimately what I'm going to tell you is that the guys who in the tackle position, the left tackles who can stay down, so if their hips start, it's a function of their height, but if their hips start at a certain level, the guys who are elite, and elite as defined by actual O-line coaches in the NFL, they can stay down and low and don't get turned open. So in this case, from the vision here, it would look like the guy's turning left. They do that for over 2 seconds. So Andrew Whitworth is a great example of this. He got a whole bunch of money to play for the LA Rams, and I really like that one because they had a really great year. So it kind of proved the model. It proved the model out. We can get into which regressions I used and how I did that. That was also very fun, just so you know. And then I was like, well, how do we better use this to predict things? So it's not really helpful to only look backwards, right? So we trained our model on the past, and then I don't know what's happening here. Something's gonna happen. And so I was like, well, what can I use? There we go. What can I use to pay it forward? So what do we have? We have the scouting combine, which is actually next week, starts on Sunday. And we get a chance to see, this is Taylor Lewan, he went to Michigan. Look how tall he is. He's 6'7" and 1/8 inch, and he weighs 300 pounds. I don't care about the total time in his 40. If your lineman's running 40 yards, like this is a horrible problem. That's not gonna happen. I care about the first 10 split of this. So if you look at Taylor as he puts his hand down and starts, Taylor has one of his hip height stays the same. You'll see it. I wish I could track it on here, but again, my PowerPoint skills have really slacked since Kellogg. So you can see as he starts here, just watch the first 10. Who cares about after that? Oh, his hips stay exactly level. That's the first 10 split right there. So as I measured everyone running across that, and then I mapped them to who they became in the NFL. And we group them: elite, above average, average, below average, and well below average. We figured out one thing, that those guys who kept their hips level, and it's again a function of their height, so he's really tall, so that might look high to you, but this guy's 6'7" and 1/8 inch tall, so he's tall. As they did that, I don't know where that's coming from, we figured out how that maps to the NFL. There's Andrew Whitworth again, that's when he was a Bengal. So what we found out was, and you can see my attempt to show you what I measured there, so where were their feet, and then I looked at the angle of their hips, and then I actually mapped it, that one's kind of a 3-dimensional plot to see where his other hip is, right? So the guys who can stay within a certain range for the first 10 split, they become the Andrew Whitworths. And by the way, Taylor Lewan's really good too, but I had to put Whitworth in there because he's my favorite. So the whole point here was that we created a model and proved it out because it's useful. A coach can take that during the scouting combine to look at O-linemen and actually apply it a little bit. Now, am I saying that's the only thing they should use? Yes, absolutely, and you should pay me a lot of money to do that for you. But in reality, no, it's just to kind of help approximate, here's a way to organize this data so you have a little bit better information, and here's how it proved over the last 10 years. And every O-line coach, who are all very grumpy, and they wear like funny hats, and they're like pretty heavy, and they're all kind of gruff, and they're like, who's a good one? And then it'll be like, Taylor Lewan, and you'll show the results, and he'll be like, all right, Taylor Lewan's pretty good. And they're like, who else is good? You're like, Jack Conklin's a right tackle. They're like, all right, he's pretty good. And you can go through and name, and pretty much every Dallas Cowboy O-lineman, they're pretty good too. Zach Martin, not a tackle, but you get where I'm going with this. So the point is that it proves itself out over the past to say, hey, maybe this is a good place to look for the future. So that's the helpful part. I'm bad at this clicking apparently too. So now social listening. So I don't care what people are tweeting because people like me with the blue check mark and whatever, like I tweet things that I think you'll find interesting. I'm not necessarily tweeting things, I'm hoping to answer a question that you want to know, but I feel like there had to be a better way to figure out what people really want to know ahead of games. So for me, I mapped a few key things together. So I mapped together like Google search results, like what are you searching for in the search box? By the way, that's a scary world to get into. Be careful. People search really weird stuff. Then I mapped it to what was on the TV. So if ESPN shows a really heartwarming story about Adam Thielen, there will be a spike in searches for Adam Thielen. There will be a spike and hits on Adam Thielen's page. There will be a spike everywhere. And you're like, okay, I know where this is coming from. So what you try to do is you try to figure out like where this info is coming from. Now there's this place. It's a desert. A lot of people go there for bachelor and bachelorette parties. I don't acknowledge it because I work for the NFL, but that place gives you a lot of great market data on what people are interested in buying. Got it? And you can map that volume, like where people are buying and what they're buying. You can map the volume of their decisions or how those things move. The price might move for that. You can map that over time to see trends. And then you can see when there's a spike, you can figure out why. And so my premise was that if we did a better job of listening to what our audience wants to hear about before games, then we can serve them better. So we create an adaptive segment. It's at 12:15 Eastern Time, 9:15 Pacific. And we don't know what that is ahead of time. Now, I don't know if any of you work in TV, but typically you have this thing, it's called a rundown, and it's literally everything you're going to talk about in the show, and it's decided a couple of days ahead of time. And yes, if there's breaking news, you move things around, but typically the A block looks like the A, and the B, et cetera. But we have a whole segment on a show that's pretty well established that we have no idea what we're talking about ahead of time. Thanks, graphics department. Thanks, research department. Very helpful. But the point is to try to do something a little different so we can be a little bit more targeted. So for me, the whole point in telling you what we've been searching and why we've been searching it is to kind of get into the whole point of my talk, which is I really want you to map together empathy and what you can do. So for example, find a question that's worth solving. Listen to the people who may not have an analytics background and ask them what you can do for them. O-line coaches do not like analytics. They're not gonna tell you that they're into it. They're not gonna tell you what's important. They're not gonna take this, so like, this is a team search volume, by the way. I forgot to show you this slide earlier. This is their search volume during a typical week. The numbers mean nothing because I had to kind of obscure it for you. But the lines mean when the injury report comes out, you'll see what's normal. So you can map, this is the Patriots search data in a regular week. So once the injury report comes out, you'll see a bump. People care about the Patriots, so they're always gonna be above that line. But like when Tennessee goes above that line, now you know something's going on there that you could address on TV that can maybe solve a problem that your viewer solve something that your viewer actually cares about seeing. So just so you know, that's kind of what it looks like. So my point is that we get a chance to solve questions that coaches really want. But you can't do that if you don't understand what they're talking about, speak in their language, or really care about what they care about. So to me, my whole plea is to have a little bit of empathy and a little bit of, like, ask them what they need and try to provide an answer that's not like so over their heads, and don't give them Tableau, they don't care. Don't, you know what I mean? Like, don't try to be like, I wrote this in the absolute, like, you know, this isn't a relational database. You know what that is? Yeah, Hive. Nobody cares. Right? So the point is have the sophistication, understand what the databases can do, understand which code does what, and if it's Excel, great. Understand what Excel can and can't do, and answer a question that's worth answering. In football especially, we have so many questions that are left to be unanswered. There's nothing but like open fields for us to play in, right? So to me, it's all about empathy and being innovative with your process. I don't think that there's not an academic paper yet, maybe I'm gonna do one, on linemen's bums, but I think there should be, right? Like there should be something where it's pieced together using computer vision, and then I use a lot of different, some of it's in R, I know, judge me, do it. And some of it's in Hive, some of it's, it's all in different codes because I have a good understanding of what all the code can do for me, and it's whatever I can do best, right? Like if I know all these different regressions, like figure out a lasso regression, try to tell my boss what a lasso regression, he doesn't care. You know, so it's up to me to give you some information that's usable. I actually got a chance to interview the head coach of the Eagles a couple weeks ago, like right after the Super Bowl. And he was the first to say out loud in football that I'm aware of, you know, that he asked them to do specific studies. He asked for 5 to 10 years of data and figuring out like exactly what he needs, and boom, he has an answer pretty quick. And he uses them like that. And it's that trusting relationship and that empathy for, you know, what are the problems of TV producers? Well, we're gonna try to do an adaptive segment to make our pregame show different from the other pregame shows. Great, I can help model that, right? And it's, for the coaches, it's how can I help figure out a better O-line, or whatever question that you wanna answer. So for me, this is where my MBA pays off. See this slide? Just behold, it's great. So ultimately, it's all about, you know, surfacing a limited number of outcomes that have good probability of happening. And by the way, that good probability comes from historical database. You're empowering human choice. You're not giving directions. You're not a stats jerk. You don't say data. I don't say data, I say data. I'm not bougie like that. So ultimately, to me, it's consistently improve your process, be transparent, include people, collaborate with people, and you become invaluable by piecing it together. You don't become invaluable by hoarding it. Got it? Good? Yes? Okay. I'll let you ask me some questions now. Yes? No? Oh, here's my information. I didn't put my picture on there. You can look at me instead. Anyone? No questions? Good? Yes? Don't all jump at once. Oh, go ahead. You have to yell. Thank you.
I mean, for the linemen and their bottoms, I mean, they're just getting better leverage, right? So the better linemen, if they have better leverage, they can pass protect better. Is that kind of how you understand it?
Yeah, it's about, so a waist bender is a problem of unfavorable leverage, right? The problem is that I play my divisional opponents twice. I play my schedule each year. You play yours. It's a little different in the AFC West than it is in the NFC East. It's a little different based on what are you facing? Are you facing teams that run a lot? Or are you facing teams that pass a lot? There are situations where you can have a little bit, like it's about the negotiation between, do I need maybe let's call Jason Peters the best right tackle in the entire NFL right now. Do I need Jason Peters, or can I make it work with someone that isn't quite as good? So it's all about kind of finding the magnitude and the payoff based on the type of offense you run and what you want to achieve. So it's all put in context. I can't create that context, but I can tell you leverage-wise who projects to be strong and who projects to be weak. I can help tell you. I love that question. That's a great question. Thank you. So he asked me if I've looked at exercises like deadlifting or yoga that could be better or worse, or how that maps to it. And the answer is I have not. You can do that. I'll give you my data. You can further it, and then you can put that little parentheses, and I'll feel so academic. I have not, but I would like to. I think I know a lot of people are looking into stuff like that, but that specifically I have not. Go ahead. Oh. Yeah. So we're talking about the competitive, so thank you for the question. She asked me about the competitive landscape and other companies being able to provide this, and absolutely. To me, the best thing you can do is be part of the patchwork for helping a coach understand, and that's what I'm talking about, empathy, right? So if I need Pro Football Focus to help me answer some questions for TV, that's Jeff, he heads up our research department. I beg Jeff, make a deal with Pro Football Focus, and then he does it, right? Ideally, asterisks. It's about working together and patchwork together and establishing trust. And like I said, if there's one thing you take away, please be empathetic with your data. Please show empathy with your data. That's a great question. So she asked me how the communications situation and the lineman's bum situation work together. First of all, they didn't happen at the same time. So lineman's bums is something I've been working on for a longer time, and then TV's a little bit more recently. So luckily, time has been wonderful. The other answer to that is that I'm very lucky to have had a weird career, and I have been really lucky to have great mentors in both spaces, and those two spaces feel like my lanes. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I have the disproportionate access to great people in football, communications, media, and then I have great access to coaches, and it's just been lucky, and that's how I've been able to piece mine together. All right, one more question. I don't want to see. Go ahead. So he asked me a question about the lineman bum and clustering and if there would be bias in the sample. And you're right, there would be. It's impossible to get all bias out. However, I don't know what the lineman was supposed to do. And I spoke to 22 coaches to help me put them into the clusters. And since you're not rank ordering someone, so we're not arguing who's 2 or 3, we're arguing in 5 clusters. I feel as though, and especially when I did a ton of regressions to see how much error I'd introduced into the sample and fit it with a million types of things. So ultimately, my answer to that question is there's going to be human error in all of it, but I tried to increase the sample so big that it would minimize the error to a point where it's acceptable. I think 22, these people know what that person was supposed to be doing. You or I, unless and there's a coach out there, we don't know what someone's supposed to be doing on a play. Thank you very much. I will definitely be taking questions later. Please keep in touch. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.